Joe Biden's final act as president revealed to the world he is corrupt. In the final minutes of his presidency, the 82-year-old issued get-out-of-jail-free cards to his entire family. After pardoning his son, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden flexed his presidential power in a move that is unprecedented in recent history by granting preemptive blanket pardons for his family for any non-violent crimes that they may have committed. This includes his brother James, his sister-in-law Sara Jones, his sister Valerie, his brother-in-law John Owens, and his youngest brother Francis Biden. This is something that Joe Biden claimed he would never do.
All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. You're not going to see in our administration that kind of approach to pardons. Nor are you going to see in our administration the approach to making policy by tweets. It's just going to be a totally different way in which we approach the justice system.
Joe Biden wants you to believe that all members of his family are innocent, that none of them have broken the law, they're just victims of political attacks. Well, put simply, if there was nothing to hide, why did his family members accept the pardons? They could have refused them. And why did Joe Biden need to make sure that the pardons he issued date back to January 1, 2014? What happened in 2014? Well, it's the year that Hunter Biden joined the board of Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, despite lacking any experience in the energy sector. At the time that Joe Biden was vice president and in charge of relations with Ukraine. Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were allegedly raking in millions of dollars through different bank accounts. And Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devin Archer, told Congress Hunter Biden was selling the illusion of access to his father. The whole Biden family have been accused of influence peddling. Author of The Laptop from Hell and The Big Guy, Miranda Devine, told Sky News that the mainstream media has been covering up for this family for years, and now the American people know that Joe Biden was corrupt.
It is so outrageous, but it's so on brand for Joe Biden. And of course, he waited until 20 minutes before Donald Trump gave his speech, was sworn in, so that the news would be swamped with the news of the inauguration. And he's pardoned, first of all, his son Hunter, but today, both of his brothers, Jim and Frank, their wives, plus his sister Val and her husband. I mean, it was a family deal, and that tells you that has to be an admission of guilt. There's only one reason that you get pardoned, and that's if you're guilty. And we've had Democrats have been telling us this for eons, ever since Donald Trump started mooting preemptive pardons for his allies. He never did it. These are preemptive pardons for Joe Biden's family members that go back to January 1, 2014, which was
outrageous. Surely it's not the last we'll hear of all this.
Well, look, there's so much other news, and we have a media in America that has covered up for the Bidens, that has really ignored the corruption that the New York Post and we exposed back before the 2020 election. They pretended that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation or wasn't real, didn't exist. That held a lot of the evidence and was the key to unlocking the Biden influence peddling operation that went on when he was vice president, raking in millions of dollars for his family from China, Ukraine, Russia, Romania, Kazakhstan, you name it. And they've gotten away scot-free with it, but at least the American people now know that Joe Biden was corrupt, and that's, I guess, his legacy. He's just proven it with his final pardons.
Josh Hammer says that history will judge Biden's presidency extremely harshly.
Well, this whole final stanza, I guess you would say, of the Biden presidency was simply astonishing, simply incredible in the worst possible sense of the term. So Joe Biden said that in many ways you had to elect Democrats, whether it was him or Kamala Harris this cycle, because the other guy, Donald Trump, was going to shatter every quote unquote norm that has ever existed in the history of the American Republic there. How many norms is Joe Biden just completely shattering on his very sorry and sordid way out the door? From pardoning his own son, Hunter Biden, who he repeatedly, dozens if not hundreds of times times, vowed time and time again that he would never pardon him here, to Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, the Biden family itself. You know, those pardons of Biden's family members, including his brother Jim Biden, he pardoned 5 or 6 close Biden family members there 15 minutes before Donald Trump put his hand on the Bible and took the oath of office. Are you kidding me? I mean, who does that? I mean, it's astonishing stuff here. It's the kind of stuff that I'm a lawyer. I'm telling you, we have never seen these kind of pardons on the way out the door. He also pardoned a horrific cop killer by the name of Peltier, Leon Peltier, going back to the 1970s. He killed 2 FBI cops on an Indian reservation in South Dakota. He's been in prison for a half century now. They're disgusting stuff, all to try to throw a sop to his various intersectional constituency wings on his way out the door, still not getting the message, even as he is getting his butt kicked out of Washington, D.C. there.
James Billow from Unheard told Power Hour that Biden's presidency has been one of the most depressing periods in American history.
But Biden has pardoned over 7,500 people during his time in office, which is leaps and bounds beyond any precedent in history. So this is quite an extraordinary time, and I would say a very worrying precedent has been set.
It is absolutely extraordinary, and we know that Joe Biden said that he wouldn't do preemptive pardons. He said that in 2020, and of course here we are in the final moments of his presidency, pardoning his family. I mean, what kind of legacy does he leave?
The lame duck period of his presidency, which has arguably been going on for a lot longer than his loss to Donald Trump, has been one of the most depressing periods in modern American history. I mean, the man has become a shell of himself, and the kind of legacy he's left as well. He had those first 2 years where he was actually legislatively incredibly productive, and some credit, whether you agree with his policies or not, has to go to him for that. But the last 2 years, the wheels really came off, and it's almost as if he just threw in the towel after that Trump loss. He was incredibly angered about the fact that he was basically pushed aside by his own party in place of Kamala Harris. And I think that really showed in his final few weeks as president. So I don't think this is hugely surprising, but it is quite depressing. I
mean, the contrast between the energy Trump has shown and the, weekend at Bernie's act of the last 4 years with the president. Joe Biden, though, just 20 minutes before ending his time as president, pardoned 2 of his brothers, his sister, and 2 of their partners for anything they may have done that was not actually violent over the past 11 years. He doesn't know what it could be, but or thinks he doesn't know. He's already has pardoned his son Hunter in the same way, plus pardoned him for tax fraud and gun offences. This absolutely stinks. What's going on?
Well, I think you just put it best. And it's Democrats that are reacting to this, not just Republicans. You have a series of Democrat operatives, former elected officials, talking about how he's undermined. And frankly, Andrew, it's his own words. He was asked about this on CNN, and he said this would undermine democracy in the way that the world looks at us. I think he's absolutely right. I don't think that history is going to reflect well on Joe Biden.
In another outrageous move, Joe Biden pardoned former COVID advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci. Yes, the man who admitted that the 6-foot distancing rule that we were all forced to abide by was essentially made up and was not based on data.
Think about the preemptive pardon of his family members, Bronwyn. Joe Biden.
I was truly shocked. I mean, to make that announcement, minutes before Trump was making his speech.
Yeah.
And it's the date. It's 2014.
11 years.
What were they up to?
Very specific.
What were they up to back then? Well, of course,
exactly.
that's when his son went onto the board in the Ukraine of the gas company, I think it was, with no experience in whichever that company was. But to go for the whole family, but also Fauci.
Yes, exactly. Makes me so angry.
Your book was so spot on. It was in the lab without any doubt at all, and it is quite clear to me that Fauci was the one who was pushing gain of function, which is to make it more potent for human beings. That's what he was doing, and hiding the money that he was sending. And for these people to be pardoned in this group.
But it's bizarre, and I don't know, Bronwyn, you were a lawyer. How can you preemptively pardon someone who hasn't been charged, let alone convicted?
Well,
I mean, how does that work?
And if you want to know what the Democrats think about preemptive pardons, well, in their words, it means you're guilty.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. If you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
If he pardons people preemptively, he's essentially telling the public that these people have committed crimes. And we may not be aware of what they are, but the pardon is clear evidence that crimes have been committed.
And Fauci's pardon for crimes that he may have committed also dates back to 2014.
Was another day of infamy for Joe Biden, who right at the last moment, in fact it was announced as he and Jill were on their way to the inauguration ceremony, issued preemptive pardons for Anthony Fauci and for his entire family. And these preemptive pardons, some of them go back for the last 10 years. Now, Joe Biden said in a statement, quote, "I believe in the rule of law, but these are exceptional circumstances," which sounds a little self-serving. Donald Trump had this to say about Biden issuing these preemptive pardons for his family.
I was surprised that President Biden would go and pardon his whole family, because that makes him look very guilty. And I could have pardoned my family. I could have pardoned myself, my family. And I said, if I do that, it's going to make me look very guilty. I don't think I'd be sitting here, frankly.
The weird thing about this, Joe, is you pardon someone for a crime that has been committed.
That's right.
But when you're pardoning people who've been accused of no crime, that's less a pardon than a shield, isn't it?
Oh, this is Minority Report. This is pre-crime. This is part of it, but it's kind of like the opposite. Instead of arresting someone for a crime that they haven't yet committed, you're pardoning them for a crime they hadn't yet committed. But again, I just love...
Oh, they've committed the crime.
I love the Donald's performance with this, which is that... Oh, no, because I think the pardon applies for anything they may be charged with in the future.
Correct.
But I love the fact that the Donald... When he's saying this, again, he doesn't do what the left did when it was Donald Trump pardoning people and them not liking it, saying, this is outrage, he's violated the sanctity of the office of the preventator. Trump talks, instead of all the hyperbole, sorry, I did the Julia Gillard pronunciation, he says, oh, that looks really dodgy. Like, he speaks in a way that absolutely everyone can understand, but also speaks in a way that actually goes straight to the heart of it, says, hang on a minute, you know, like that sort of tough New York streetwise attitude to it. So hang on a minute, if he's going around pardoning people, that means they must have done something. So instead of all the histrionics around, you know, Joe Biden besmirching the great office of the President of the United States, or dragging our country into, you know, or Joe Biden is actually Hitler, which is all the things that the Democrats would have said if Trump did it, he just goes, well, obviously this guy looks guilty then. And he goes, I'm too smart to do that because I know I would have looked guilty, huh?
Of course, the other part of this is that Joe Biden had said he would not do this. Have a listen to Democrat Senator Adam Schiff, who some time ago said, no, this would never happen. Biden and I have talked and there'll be no preemptive pardons issued.
The precedent of giving blanket pardons, preemptive blanket pardons, on the way out of an administration, I think is a precedent we don't want to set.
And you've communicated that to the President Biden?
Communicated it both publicly and privately to the administration.
Question I have, Liz, is do you think Trump will go after people, and were they right to fear that Trump was going to say go after Fauci? Or do you think Trump is going to fresh start, let's not abuse the rule of law, let's just move forward and not look back.
It would not have been an abuse of the law to go after Anthony Fauci. I'm like, Anthony Fauci's pardoned. Was Satan unavailable? Seriously, who else do you want to pardon? He also pardoned the general, whose name was Mark Milley, who outright admitted that behind, at the time, President Trump's back, he told China, don't worry, we haven't got any incoming strikes, and if we did, I would give you guys a heads up. The biggest enemy of the United States of America, here was this General Mark Milley saying, hey, just so you know, we're mates, China, and so if anything's coming down the pipeline at my end, I will let you know. That guy's pardoned. This is the likes of the people that this guy has used his powers. And let's be clear here, it is totally run-of-the-mill normal for presidents to pardon everyday Americans who have been convicted of crimes on their way out the door. This is totally different. These people haven't been convicted of anything. They haven't even been investigated. So the purpose of these pardons is to ensure that they won't be investigated. And the importance of this cannot be overstated, because what he's essentially done is create a class of people who can get away with murder thanks to being in the family of the highest ranking officer in the Western world, who then pardons them and waltzes out the door. I'm telling you, if you ever wondered who the deep state really are, well, a chunk of them just got pardoned. Who the heck has the temerity to pardon? Here's the list. Here's the list that the president put out in the dying minutes of his presidency. He pardoned his sister, her husband, his two brothers, and one of his brothers' wives. So he's covering off on the in-laws. I'm surprised there aren't their family pets listed. I mean, after the embarrassment and the rightful media backlash, when he not just preemptively but retrospectively pardoned his son Hunter Biden, and we all know the dodginess. We know that the Biden family pocketed millions from Ukraine and good chunks of money from China as well. We know that went on, and once again, he waltzes free also. This is a crime family syndicate that has made sure that for as long as they live, they're in the clear.
So does he go after the 51 intelligence experts who famously came out and declared that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian misinformation propaganda? Trump has suspended their security clearances. That's a first step. Does he then go after and prosecute them? Because arguably, you could accuse them of election interference. 17% of Americans say they would have voted differently had they known Hunter Biden's laptop was real. But of course, they were told by former members of the American security agencies that this was all disinformation. And they knew well that it wasn't, because the security had had the laptop for close to 12 months before they came out and said it was Russian
How's this for an idea, right? So you go, as Liz said, the idea presumably is so that Biden says, well, there's no point investigating any of this because it will just result in a pardon anyway. Yes, but it doesn't mean you can't still investigate anyway, pursue everything to the nth degree, take it through the courts, get the conviction, and but then you've been pardoned. Imagine how that would look if you actually, and if I'm sure there must be people in Trump's administration smart enough to see how brilliant it would look if they just got the most lay down misere, easily prosecutable case of any of this. Presumably the closest you could get to Biden, the better.
Are you still referring to the spies that lied?
No. Any of them. Any of the people on the list of Hunter Biden, of Joe Biden's list of pardons, including his own family, right? Just because he's pardoned them doesn't mean you can't then
drag them through the mud.
You can prosecute them and drag them all through the legal process, and then presumably, I would think, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but you could have the judge actually find them guilty, at which point they would be instantly pardoned and walk scot-free.